Okay, you're good to go, Ron.
Okay, very good. Welcome, folks. This is the Tri-Valley Democratic Club special forum candidate night for what many have said, and I believe is true, the most important election in Alameda County for this particular election cycle, year 2022. I am Dr. Ron Lorenz, the president of the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. And I'd like to welcome all of our folks and guests that are with us tonight. First, I'd like to extend a wonderful welcome to our distinguished guests, Pamela Price and Terry Wiley. Thank you for joining us. We are honored to have the both of you here with us tonight. I would also like to welcome our Tri-Valley Democratic Club members and the general public who is invited, and also the New Style freedom fighters, people who are working to save our democracy with us, the press corps. Welcome, all you press folks. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn over the evening's events to the Tri-Valley Democratic Club Vice President, our own wonderful Richard Lee. Richard, the floor is yours as moderator.
Great, thanks, Ron. Did you want to lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance by any chance?
I can do the Pledge of Allegiance now, and here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Richard?
Thanks so much, Ron. That was great. Well, good evening, everyone. Ron covered a lot of what we are going to be doing tonight, but I just wanted to cover really quickly our voting procedure. So we are going to go into a format briefly of both candidates. Each candidate will have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, for their opening statements. Ron has very graciously volunteered to be our timekeeper, and he will give a heads up to the candidates once they hit 4.5 minutes. Afterwards, we will go into open questions and answers. This is open to both members of the club, but also to the general public. So you do not have to be a member of the club to ask a question. There are 2 ways to ask questions. You can either raise your hand and we will call on you live to ask your question, or you can add your question to the chat and indicate whether you would like to pop on your microphone and ask the question yourself, or we are happy to ask the question for you as well. Each person will have 30 seconds to ask a question, and candidates will have up to 90 seconds to answer. If there are select questions that are deemed more complicated or more complex and more nuanced, then we will allow candidates to answer in 2 minutes, and we will make that note when we get to such a question. At the end of the forum, we will have up to 2 minutes for each candidate to give a closing statement, at which point we will launch into our voting procedure. This is open strictly to members in good standing of the club. Jackie will handle that portion of the event. If there are no questions, we will go right in ahead. So let's start first.
Richard,
Yeah.
I have a question. This is John Bauer. So I'm participating by phone. I do have a question. How do I get my question? Yeah, you said raise hand or in the chat. I have access to neither.
So John, you should still have access to the chat if you're on your phone, or you can press, if you're on a keypad, I believe the short code is *6 to raise your hand.
Yeah, that just unmutes me.
Okay, then it's *9. If it's not *6, it's *9.
*9. Okay, I'll do that then.
All right, perfect. Thanks, John. All right, let's go right in ahead. First up, we will go in alphabetical order, and then we will switch it up to keep it in fairness. So first up, we have Pamela Price. You have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. And Richard, it's
Hey,
the
Ross,
Ron.
hey,
Ron
I'm
is
on
the
a
time.
Zoom district
Doug.
attorney forum. So let me finish up, but you
Doug,
are
could
on
you-
the top of my list, and I want to make sure we
Doug, could you please mute, please? Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Doug.
sorry, Pamela. Go ahead.
Okay, so Ron is the timekeeper, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, good evening, Tri-Valley Democrats. Thank you for having us to come back again. My name is Pamela Price. As you know, I represent the 18th Assembly District on the Alameda County Democratic Party Central Committee. I am the secretary of the Oakland East Bay Democratic Club and proud to be a longtime resident of East Oakland. I'm running for Alameda County District Attorney because I am a drum major for justice, because for too long, prosecutors in Alameda County and across the country have forgotten that their mission is to protect public safety by advancing justice. I have been a civil rights attorney in this community for more than 40 years, successfully arguing against racial harassment in the United States Supreme Court, creating new laws against sexual harassment in both education and in employment, reforming the entire California correctional system on behalf of female employees. I'm a survivor myself of the Ohio juvenile justice and foster care system. And I got a great education. I made it to Yale College by the grace of God because I had wonderful foster mothers who never lost faith in me and kept their hands on me and pushed me to get an education and told me that as I could do, if I got an education, that nobody could take that from me. And that has turned out to be true. Education was, in fact, a game changer in my life. Like I said, I got a great education at Yale, and then I came to California, went to UC Berkeley, got a great education at Berkeley. I'm the first person to run for this seat since 1966. And most people don't realize that it's been that long since we actually had an election, a contest in Alameda County for the office of district attorney. It's always been an elected position, but since 1939, we have had an appointed district attorney, and it has just been passed down, passed down, passed down. And so this is the first time Ron talked about how historic this is. Not only are we the only countywide race on the ballot in November, but this is the first time in 83 years that we have not had, that we have an opportunity to elect a district attorney who's not appointed by the Board of Supervisors. I have been a champion for people in this community who have come to see me on their worst day. I've been a champion for women and gender equity and women's rights since 1977. One of the defining moments of my life and my legal career was when I served as the lead plaintiff in the first sexual harassment lawsuit under Title IX. And so I'm really inspired as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX to be recognized for that work and to recognize that everyday people can make a difference in the lives of their community and, in fact, in the conversation that we have nationally. And as we all know, there is a national conversation on criminal justice reform, and I have been a part of that conversation since I was in law school. I've also, as a lawyer, had a very successful legal career. I've been honored as the Assemblywoman of the Year for Assembly District 18. I've been honored by the state legislature many times, and I have certificates of congressional recognition from both Congresswoman Barbara Lee, as well as Congressman Mark DeSaullier. And I tell people I've gotten those awards because I have done the work. And I've done it in Alameda County. I was embraced by Alameda County when I came here in 1978. And I had the opportunity to become the lawyer that I wanted to be, and that I've had the blessing. I've lived every lawyer's dream, which is to go to the United States Supreme Court and argue a case. I've argued cases all over California and tried cases and won them. I've also lived every lawyer's nightmare, which is to watch someone be incarcerated that I felt in my heart did not need to be incarcerated. In fact, I'm a survivor myself of a wrongful prosecution by the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, who would have destroyed my career and my life's path if it had not been for some very good lawyers who were able, and community members who saw through the charade that was playing out for them in the courtroom. You know, Alameda County right now is at a crossroads. The question is, do we step forward and move with the rest of the country towards trying to create a new system of justice, a fair system of justice?
Excuse me.
Ron.
30 seconds left.
Okay. Or do we continue to invest in a system that has failed us, broken system that everyone says is broken, and failed leadership? I believe in Alameda County. I believe that what we do here matters. And I believe that the people of I live here and I voted with the people of Alameda County. And I know that we have voted overwhelmingly for criminal justice reform. And that's what time it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I think my screen might have frozen, but I hope y'all can hear me. Next, we will go to Terry Wiley.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry Wiley, and I am also running for, I'm running to be the next Alameda County District Attorney. You know, I was born and raised in the Bay Area. I'm the youngest of 12 kids. I have an identical twin brother, and my dad died when we were 7. So I remember growing up that, you know, many of the stories that would come from my older brothers is they would tell us a lot of stories about my dad, because we were only 7 when he passed. But they would also tell us that, you know, if you want to make something of yourself, we're gonna have to do it with education. So I was a kid that grew up with no illusion as to what I would have to do to make it in life. And I knew it was going to be through education. But I also saw that I was someone who came from very meager surroundings, that I lived in a country where I could put in as much effort as I wanted to put in and make something of myself. And so, you know, I sit here as someone who loves this country. I love the educational opportunities that I received and how I was able to make something of my life. You know, I came to the district attorney's office not really knowing how long I was going to stay in the office. But what I found when I got there was an office that we were able to help people. You know, we saw many people coming through the doors every day whose families had been victimized, families who had been victims of murder, rape, domestic violence. And we would sit with those victims and try to seek justice on their behalf. And that's what's kept me in the district attorney's office for 32 years. And I think that what I represent is balance and experience. You know, I've been in the office for 32 years, but I've always been someone who brought a very balanced approach, because coming from the African-American community, and particularly coming from a family of 12 kids, you know, our family had its own issues that we ran into growing up over time. And we didn't always feel there was fairness in the criminal justice system. And so I feel like this is an opportunity for Alameda County and for California for the next district attorney to be an African-American and bring a different viewpoint from this pedestal that we would sit on. And you know, that and what I expect to do as the next district attorney of Alameda County with my experience is to enable, well, I think first of all, my experience enables me to understand the strengths, weaknesses, and potential of the office. I want to build a real working relationship with law enforcement, the newly elected county sheriff, and the Alameda courts and the board of supervisors, so that we can provide effective law enforcement with fairness and justice. You know, since the primary, I've been endorsed by 4 of the 5 members of the board of supervisors, every mayor in Alameda County except 4, and a host of city council members throughout the county. Also, Assembly Member Mia Bonta, former Assembly Member Lonnie Hancock, to name a few. Because I believe that in the area of mental health treatment, for example, I want nonviolent people with severe mental illness out of our jails. They need treatment, not jail. We need to provide an appropriate continuum of care in the community, from intervention to permanent supportive housing. I will work with the Board of Supervisors to provide real options for mental health persons to get treatment. We need a new acute mental health hospital. John George Hospital isn't able to accommodate the demand. We also need to expand our behavioral health courts and be able to divert people to appropriate facilities as the recent grand jury report recommends. You know, not everyone needs a jail setting for punishment. We need alternatives, permanent supportive housing for nonviolent people who need to be off of our streets. And I think working with the new sheriff, we can improve the conditions of the Santa Rita jail. We should view this as an opportunity and work to instill a culture of rehabilitation in our adult system.
Excuse me, Mr. Wiley, 30
Yeah.
seconds left.
But let me just say that, you know, as a member of the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, we're not starting from scratch. Many have said that we are one of the most progressive offices in the state of California, and we will continue to make progressive strides under my leadership in the District Attorney's Office. And I look forward to a discussion this evening to show you the difference between my leadership, what my leadership would look like, and what Ms. Price's leadership would look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, candidates. Now, floor is open to questions. For anyone who came in late, I will reiterate the rules. You do not have to be a member of the club to ask a question. If you'd like to ask a question, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat, and you will have 30 seconds to ask a question. I see one question in the chat from Michael. Thank you. Property crime has spiked across the country, across the county. In Oakland, 2 people are murdered on an average day. Specifically, what would you do to deter and reduce crime and recidivism? Since Ms. Price went first, we will this time go to Mr. Wiley. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you for that question. Well, I think I'm the only candidate in this race that has set out a specific plan on how I want to address violent crime. Let me first say it's very important that we address the violent crime in our county in an effective manner, because so much of it winds up extending its long arms to other counties and to other parts of Alameda County. But specifically, to address the violent crime in our county, I want to start what is called a crime strategies unit. This is where we will put 7 of our top trial lawyers in a unit whose focus is going to be exclusively on what we have numbered about 2,000 individuals who are repeat offenders who drive at least 70% of the violent and serious crime in Alameda County. And they will have one task. It will be a data-driven unit, so that if we are focusing on a particular part of the county, no one can say to us that we're focusing on that particular part of the county because of anyone's race or ethnicity. It will be completely data-driven, and we are going to focus on those 2,000 individuals, and we're confident that after we've had an opportunity to implement the kind of changes we want to make to the system, you are going to see a dramatic decrease in violent and serious crime. Now, specifically in the area of low-level, nonviolent property crimes. These crimes represent a combination of
10 seconds left.
Yeah. Well, we will focus on those crimes. We do think that there needs to be a healthy dose of accountability baked into how we deal with those particular crimes, but we do think that there's an opportunity to find alternatives to incarceration and diversion programs. But at the same time, there's got to be some accountability in the system, in that, you know, you just can't come break into my car and then think nothing's going to happen. And so I'm not in favor of that kind
Thank you,
of
Mr. Wiley.
criminal justice system.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Our campaign has consistently said that we will prioritize reducing crime in Alameda County and certainly protecting public safety, which means the question incorporates recidivism, and that is a major driver of crime because we don't have effective reentry programs in Alameda County. CDCR says 61% of the people who we have been incarcerating will reoffend within 3 years. And so we have to break that cycle, both from as to violent crime. We have to get rid of guns in Alameda County. And as district attorney, I will prioritize violent crimes over the prosecution of misdemeanors. And I will address gun violence where it starts, and people who give guns to children in this community will no longer be given a pass. Additionally, like I said, budget is a statement of priority. Our priority is to address all violent crimes across the county, and that includes domestic violence. The numbers of people that Mr. Wiley has identified as the target, they've been here, and the DA's office has done nothing to protect us from those people. Additionally, we have a huge domestic violence problem in Alameda County, which is a lens that as a woman, I bring to this. I know that violence is not limited to 2,000 people or whomever he is planning to target. Violence occurs in our school, it occurs in our homes, it occurs in a variety of settings. And the district attorney's job is to address crime and violence in using all the tools and strategies at her disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. All right, Doug, I see your hand up. You may unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Tri-Valley. This is an awesome forum. Thank you, Mr. Terry Wiley and Ms. Pamela Price for attending tonight. My question is as follows. For the last couple of years, I've had a very challenging time with a gentleman who lived in my neighborhood who pulled a weapon on me. At some point, it came to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney was full aware of the gentleman had a concealed or a weapons permit to carry the weapon. And after nothing was done, the judge finally imposed a protective order on me because the current DA's office did nothing. Moving forward, under your leaderships, who will address that will create a safe resident in Oakland? I live in Oakland, a safe environment in which I do not feel that my life is being threatened based on what currently happened under the DA's watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Ms. Price, 90 seconds.
Sure. We know that under the current administration that violence in particular neighborhoods in Oakland, particularly gun violence and the proliferation of guns, has not been a priority for the DA's office. As the next district attorney, I will focus on the proliferation of guns, people who have guns that have used guns improperly. And I happen to observe the judge that Mr. Blackshear is talking about and the district attorney who was unfortunately very ineffective. There are people who get restraining orders against people who should not have guns, and our DA's office needs to do a much better job, and we will do a much better job of using restraining orders and enforcing orders and making sure that the courts are on the same page with us and will not allow people who have threatened violence, again, whether it's in the home or on the street or at school, to have access to weapons. And we have to hold everyone accountable for that, both the person who has the weapon as well as anyone who allows that person to have access to it illegally. And that includes whether it's manufacturers, whether it's parents, whether it's even, people who lose guns. We are going to make sure that we are prioritizing the restriction, the availability, limiting the availability of guns. And it just takes once for us to be able to crack down on that. And I will work with the courts to insist that they follow the law, because what I saw in Mr. Blackshear's case was the court was not following.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Wiley, 90 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we've addressed Mr. Blackshear's question in a previous forum. And what became clear at the previous forum was that Mr. Blackshear had a particular incident, and he then called the police. And what I explained to Mr. Blackshear is that the way the system works, is that the district attorney's office is not a law enforcement. We don't actually go to the scene of an actual crime. That's done by the Oakland Police Department. So I asked him, well, did you call the police department? He said he did call the police department. And I said, well, what did the police department do? Did they arrest the individual? The police department never arrested the individual. So as a result, no case as a result of that incident was ever brought to the district attorney's office for consideration, which is how the system works. The police department bring the reports over to us on a daily basis. We have charging DAs who review them, and then they decide whether or not criminal charges will be filed. That never happened in Mr. Blackshear's case. No police reports ever came over to the district attorney's office. And I said, well, then at any point was the incident brought to the district attorney's office? He said he spoke to a DA. And I said, well, at some point, did a police agency bring that case over to our office? Did the Oakland Police Department ever bring a police report to our office? He indicated that they did not. And what I later found out, I don't know if this is true or not, Ms. Price can
10 seconds, please.
But it was my understanding that Ms. Price at some point intervened and represented Mr. Blackshear in that particular matter. And I don't know if that's true or not. And I'm not trying to, say that that happened, but I was told that, and only she can probably correct that. But I think either way, I think that the way the system of justice works, and trust me, I've spent 32 years in the district attorney's office. And if there's one thing that we take seriously is any use of firearms. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question I see in the chat. Ellis and Sharon, would you like to ask the question, or would you like for us to ask it?
I'll ask the question. Just our sound has been flaky. The question is, what are the major differences between you and your opponent?
Thank you, Ellis. Mr. Wiley, you have 90 seconds.
I think clearly experience and balance. I would say experience in that I've got 32 years in the district attorney's office, and I've held 21 different positions in the district attorney's office. And every position that I have held, I have made the kind of progressive changes that today Alameda County is called one of the most progressive offices in California. And I'll give you one example. When I took over our juvenile division in 2013, I immediately implemented a new process in which all of our DAs would be in trauma informed, would be trained on being trauma informed and best, I believe it's called the best evidence practices, so that as they evaluated juvenile cases, that there would be a consideration of the trauma that a particular juvenile has suffered, and because that trauma correlates with some of the criminal behaviors. And the focus of our juvenile system is a rehabilitative system. Secondly, I found that we were averaging about 300 juveniles per year or per week in our juvenile hall. By the time I was transferred out of juvenile hall in 2017, and the trend continues to this day, juvenile hall averages about 54 juveniles in custody in Alameda County. So that's just one example of the change that I made in every division that I've run in my 32 years in the district attorney's office. And I think that that's the difference between me and Ms. Price. I have experience.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, 90 seconds.
Sure. Let me respond to Mr. Wiley's false assertion that I represented Mr. Blackshear. I actually went to court as an observer on one occasion, and it was my understanding that the district attorney's office was representing Mr. Blackshear and trying to, certainly they were arguing the case before the judge. So I wasn't there to argue. I observed one hearing, but it's been handled by the DA's office. I would say the profound differences personally between Mr. Wiley and I have been a resident of Alameda County and part of the active in the political, social, and legal life of this community since 1978. Mr. Wiley has moved here in May of last year to run. I've been a member of the faith community in Alameda County since 1981. I have owned 2 homes and 2 office buildings, so I have paid taxes in Alameda County. On the professional side, I've been a Northern California super lawyer every year since 2004. I have argued cases in courts up and down California in counties that Mr. Wiley has not gone to, federal and state appellate court, the California Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit, and the United States Supreme Court. I have extensive knowledge of the California correctional system, having been appointed as a monitor to design injunctive relief for statewide reform to protect female employees. On the political side, I'm a 21st century prosecutor who believes that the way for us to protect public safety is to advance justice and to treat victims and family members and every resident of this community with compassion, with respect. And also I've been a champion for racial, gender, and social justice for 50 years. And I've been politically active with many community organizations, and I have connections and ties that will support my leadership as the next district attorney of Alameda County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. All right, we'll go in the order that I saw them between the chat and the raised hands. I will also note that y'all have asked a lot of questions, so I think we might limit it to 1 or 2 more to throw in the chat or raise a hand. And next we will have a question from Robin. Robin asks, I would like to know what specific issues of justice affect women versus men disproportionately. And Ms. Price, we will have you go first, 90 seconds.
Sure. We know that nationally, as well as in Alameda County, Black women are the fastest growing population of people who are being processed and prosecuted and incarcerated in the criminal justice system. So obviously that is a very issue important to my heart. The prosecution of victims of domestic violence will not be allowed under my administration. We understand that domestic violence is often in this county dramatically underreported because we don't have law enforcement enforcing and protecting women, and we've got to really step up and make sure that that is happening. I need to hold every police and law enforcement agency in this county accountable for protecting women in this county. It is clear that the kinds of things that Santa Rita Jail has been sued for, the treatment of women in that facility has been horrifying. None of us would want to be pregnant and have to give birth to a child on a dirt floor by ourselves. And yet our district attorney has turned a blind eye to the plight of women. I know multiple women that have gotten judgments against the sheriff's department, and the DA's office has done nothing to address the conditions of incarceration, which for me is a real problem because no one in Alameda County goes to jail without the district attorney or remains incarcerated without the district attorney having a hand in that. And so I understand that it's critical for me to make sure that women are not placed in peril of losing their children because of the way in which we operate our money bail system, where they can't afford to get out, and it has such a debilitating impact on the community when you don't recognize the burdens that you impose on women.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Wiley, 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. Just regarding that last question before this one, I do want to say that in 40 years that Ms. Price has been a civil rights attorney, she's never prosecuted one case. And now she wants to lead a $100 million government agency with 450 employees and be the top prosecutor. So that's why I say what separates us is experience. Now, when it comes to women and domestic violence, issues of even human trafficking, sexual assault, commercial sex exploitation, Alameda County has been one of the leading offices in the United States. We are routinely contacted by other offices across the country to get input on them trying to develop their programs to address the commercial sex exploitation and human trafficking, because we know that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence at some point in their life. Domestic violence is the single greatest cause of injury to women. Women are 7 times more likely than men to be victims of a violent assault from a current or former inmate partner. 61% of women that prostitute have been raped one or more times. 55% of prostitutes were in foster care or in group homes. 82% of prostitutes are runaways. 70% of prostitutes have been abused as children. You see, I'm able to run those stats off to you because this is something that we've been invested in for many years in Alameda County.
Please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Our next question, I see Ellen's in the chat. Ellen, would you like to step off mute or we can ask your question for you? I'll give you a couple seconds.
It's noisy here.
Okay,
You
so-
ask it.
All right, thanks, Ellen. So Ellen asks, although each candidate speaks of being progressive, how does each candidate evaluate the efforts of DA Boudin in San Francisco? And Mr. Wiley, we will go with you first.
Yeah, I think that the mistake that Chesa Boudin made is there are a couple of things. I don't think anyone disagrees that we want to have a more progressive system because there has to be an acknowledgement that there has been institutional racism, particularly within our criminal justice system, that has led to a lot of mass incarceration. And so we are trying to move the pendulum to a more fair system of justice. Okay, no doubt about that. But you cannot leave victims behind. You cannot be so intent on moving the pendulum to the left that when a person goes up and punches a 60-year-old woman in the face, that that person is not going to be held accountable because you were so intent on making it a fair system. So what I believe, and I believe that that contributed to his being recalled, but what I believe is that you can make progressive change. And particularly when you were talking about the low-level nonviolent offenses, when you were attempting to deal with people who are suffering mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and there are crimes that are born from just abject poverty. But where you have got to draw the line is when people are victimized and they're left injured. So under my leadership, we are all for making the kind of progressive change that results in putting people's lives on a different trajectory. But you don't go get to punch
10
a 60-year-old woman
please.
in the face and think you're not going to be held accountable. You don't get to stick a gun in somebody's face and think you're not going to be held accountable. There's going to be some accountability in the system, but at the same time, I'm willing to work with you. And that's why I've been honored by the National Bar Association with the Heman Sweat Civil Rights Award, and the first prosecutor in the 94-year history of the National Bar Association to be honored with the Civil Rights Award as a prosecutor. And that's why I've been endorsed by the
Thank you, Mr.
preeminent
Wiley.
civil rights attorney in Alameda County, John Burris.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, 90 seconds.
Yeah, Helen, let's be clear. Mr. Wiley is not a progressive prosecutor. He's not a progressive person, and just in terms of his political views. Mr. Wiley is very much a law and order candidate. He has spoken consistently using the rhetoric of the right wing about me and others being, quote, soft on crime. Mr. Wiley stands very much in the line of the status quo. He has been anointed by Nancy O'Malley, who is not a progressive. He is being supported by the police chiefs and Sheriff Greg Ahern. So I don't want the club to be deceived. I don't know who came up with the label saying Mr. Wiley was a progressive, but I've been endorsed by national progressive organizations. I have been a member of the progressive movement of district attorneys since 2017. And trust me, Mr. Wiley is not a part of this movement. As far as Chesa Boudin, we should not be worried about how we evaluate Mr. Boudin's administration. And I can tell you again, Mr. Wiley does not have any accurate information about how Chesa Boudin managed that office. I actually know people who work there. I know Mr. Boudin, but the question is not what happened in San Francisco. The question is, what are we doing in Alameda County? Are we going to continue to have a district attorney's office that operates without transparency, without equity, or without accountability? Those are the problems of our district attorney's office that we need to address, and we need change over here without
10
regard to what
seconds,
happened
please.
with Chesa Boudin. We know that Mr. Wiley supported the recall of Chesa Boudin, which he made that clear, even though the Democratic Party of San Francisco, as well as Democrats across the state, did not support that recall. So let's not get it twisted and say that Mr. Wiley is a progressive. Let's be very clear. He represents the law and order
Thank you, Ms. Price.
status in
Ms.
this
Price.
county.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ms. Price. Thank you. I am going to pose questions now because we have a good list. But everybody who has raised their hand or put their question in the chat already, I see you and we will get to you. All right, next in the queue is Melody. I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to come off mute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Melody. Go ahead. Melody, I think you put yourself back on mute. There we go.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this question is for, well, for both people, but my thing is that Mr. Rowley keeps talking about violent crimes. I want to know if a violent crime is considered attempted murder on an officer. Can he please, and Ms. Price, how would you, is that a violent crime? Shoot at an officer. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Price, you have 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, shooting at an officer is a violent crime. I don't need 90 seconds to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Wiley.
I'm going to use part of this question to respond to what Ms. Price just said. You know, Ms. Price said that
Well,
Mr.
I need
Riley's
to
not a
object.
progressive.
This is not
Not-
fair. I'm not allowed to respond to him. So we should not be having this kind of crosstalk. If he's going to be allowed to respond to me and not answer the question, then I should be allowed to respond to him. And I don't think you all, that's not how this is set up. So I want to object, Ron, and the leaders of the club. I'm going to ask you all to intervene here.
I don't think she should be able to tell me how to use my 90 seconds.
All right. Thank you, both candidates. Ron, were you going to say something?
Yes, this is not an opportunity for people to discuss prior questions. The 90 seconds is to discuss only the question that has been posed by the audience member.
Okay. Well, let me just say this, that I think that it doesn't matter whether you're a police officer, it doesn't matter whether you're a 9-year-old little girl or an elderly person, but anyone who an individual points a gun at and fires that weapon, regardless of if they're trying to kill them or not, that is a serious and violent felony.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wiley. All right. I see the next hand is Rivka. If you would like to come off mute, you can ask your question.
Yes. So the current DA's office has been characterized as progressive, you know, one of the most progressive in the country. And yet, in the recent years, we've seen mass incarceration, escalating crime, a lot of distrust from many sectors of the community, victims not getting the help and attention and support they should. So shall we, I mean, I think I've heard Mr. Wiley characterize the system as broken. So where are we going to go from here that's different? If you feel that the system needs fixing, are you the one to fix it?
Is that for me?
Yes,
For both of you.
I am definitely the person to fix it. This is why when you look at the civil rights attorneys that have been on the absolute forefront of demanding change in our criminal justice system, specifically here in the Bay Area, John Burris. John Burris has been the litigator in the majority of cases involving police brutality, involving cases in which there is an accusation that a person of color is not being treated fairly by law enforcement. The person that has stepped up over the years has been John Burris. John Burris has endorsed me to be the next district attorney of Alameda County. And John Burris worked with Ms. Price. They had a relationship, and he said the best person to take over our criminal justice system and make it a more fair system of justice is Terry Wiley. That's why the president of the Oakland NAACP has endorsed me. That's why the most preeminent civil rights attorney in the country, Mr. Benjamin Crump, who's represented the families of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Trayvon Martin, has endorsed me to be the next district attorney in Alameda County. When Breonna Taylor was a victim of police brutality in Louisville, Kentucky, her attorney, Lanita Baker, has endorsed me to be the next district attorney. As I said earlier, the only prosecutor in the 94 history of the National Bar Association to receive the Heman Sweat Civil Rights Award has been me. Now, that is not someone who, as Ms. Price wants to say that I'm not a progressive prosecutor. I've received that support in those awards is because I have been the most progressive voice inside the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And that's why to this day, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office is considered one of the most progressive offices in the state of California. But it needs change. And I'm the person to make those changes.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. All right, Ms. Price, 90 seconds.
Sure, I have taken exception to many of Mr. Wiley's representations, but the question really is, if you've been there 32 years, and the question for you all, not for him, but really is, how can you expect someone who has participated, profited, and prospered in a broken system for 32 years to be able to fix it? Mr. Wiley has been able to be part of the leadership, and we all, even he acknowledges it is broken. I mean, the way forward cannot be based on the vision of someone who has been stuck there, who has not been able to move the needle. I mean, we don't know about the conversations that Mr. Wiley says in terms where he was the most progressive voice, because that wasn't reflected in the policies. This is the DA's office where Nancy O'Malley advocated for the continued prosecution of youth. This is the DA's office where, under Mr. Wiley's leadership at the Juvenile Justice Department, he advocated for fines and fees being imposed on poor parents and poor people in this community. And the legislature had to step in consistently where district attorneys have been in charge. The legislature has had to step in and change the policy to require the end of enhancements. Mr. Wiley has been an advocate for enhancements, for the death penalty, for prosecution of juveniles. Those are not progressive policies. Those are things that have destabilized the community. I have been endorsed by many civil rights attorneys in this community, including Walter Riley, who was here long before John Burris, and Dan Siegel and Charles Bonner, and a whole collective, Howard Moore Jr., who mentored me before I knew Mr. Burris. And yes, I had a long relationship with Mr. Burris, and he decided that he was going to have a problem with the fees. So that's why Mr. Burris is not endorsing me. It has nothing to do with Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. We have 4 more questions. I want to ask both candidates right now if there's any flexibility to go 10 minutes.
I'm available.
I can go 20 minutes, although I do object to you allowing her to go 90 seconds of attacking me. And then when I wanted to make a statement, I got cut off. But she just got to go 90 seconds, misrepresent my record, and attack me. And I don't get to respond to that.
All right, here's what we're going to do, because I know we have 2 very impassioned candidates here. Mr. Wiley, I'm going to let you have a 30-second response, and then Ms. Price, I will let you have a 30-second response, and then we have got to move on, and we can't have any more crosstalk. I hope that's okay.
And this is a response to the question, because I'm sorry, I was answering the question. So is a response to him attacking me or a response to the question?
Response to ending this crosstalk. Mr. Wiley, I'll give you your 30 seconds apiece. Ms. Price, I'll let you respond 30 seconds and then we'll move on. Mr. Wiley, 30 seconds.
The only thing I object to is, first she said that I advocate for the death penalty. I've been very clear throughout from the day I stepped in this race, I am against the death penalty. And if someone ever faces the death penalty, I will not seek the death penalty because there is too much disparity in the application of the death penalty, misrepresentation by Ms. Price of my record. And in terms of the reason behind her, Mr. Burris not endorsing
Thank you,
her.
Mr. Wiley. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, 30 seconds.
Sure. What I know to be true is that the Alameda County District Attorney's Office prosecutes death penalty cases, even though the state of California has a moratorium. It's unnecessary. I do know that Mr. Wiley has been in charge at that office and that the office has operated in a manner that is inconsistent with the wishes of the people of this county. And as the next district attorney, who is a longtime resident and a community person in this county, I will listen to the people who live here and follow the role of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Let's move on. Our next question is from Helen in the chat. Helen, let me know if you would like to unmute or if you'd like for us to read it. All right, thanks, Helen. Helen asks, will you pledge to adopt a written policy and training that instructs prosecutors to avoid adverse immigration consequences at all stages of the criminal legal process for non-citizen community members? Ms. Price, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. The Urban Peace Movement surveyed the district attorney's office, and there have been numerous surveys pointing out the flaws in our current system. And they found that up until the pandemic, the DA's office was in fact routinely using immigration status as a way to leverage plea bargains and in fact cooperating with ICE on occasion. And so I've heard that from the lawyers that have handled those cases. I've actually worked with families that have been facing that as a very real issue. And so I understand that it's going to be absolutely essential as the leader of the office that I make sure that the deputies are not skirting around the policy and then they're not skirting around the mandate that has been given long time ago by the United States Supreme Court. So yes, I will commit fully to that. It is part of our platform. It is part of what we have been working. I served as the executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and supported and raised money for our immigration division. And that's exactly what we've had to deal with. So I'm very familiar with that problem. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Wiley, go ahead.
Yes, under my leadership, we will continue to bring in immigration lawyers to train our DAs, which has been occurring since about 2015. Each year we have a yearly meeting in which we bring all of our attorneys together and we provide trainings for our attorneys. And as far back as 2015, we provided full office training on how the office was going to address immigration circumstances of individuals coming for us in the system. We have been consistently sensitive to immigration consequences. The Public Defender's Office in Alameda County has retained a full-time immigration lawyer, and it is not unusual at all for DAs to call their immigration lawyer and ask them questions, say, hey, this is the situation we have in this particular case. So our office is always and will continue to be very sensitive to immigration consequences.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Elaine, I see your hand. You've been recognized. You may ask the question.
You're
Elaine,
muted.
Elaine, you're mute.
I think
Okay, I'm very sorry. I'm speaking now, okay? My name is Elaine Brown, and I'm a former leader of the Black Panther Party, which has a lot to do with, and has interacted for many, many years with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. Mr. Wiley has been a stalwart in that office for all the years that people have prosecuted Blacks more than ever and never prosecuted police. We have interacted very directly. He has taken a stance that is so hard and so incredible. It's almost unbelievable that he would pretend that he is a progressive. There is no John Barris or anyone else that has a record more significant in mine as a former leader of the Black Panther Party. So my question to you is, when will you prosecute police who kill Black people? You have a record, Mr. Wiley, of me standing against doing that. I want to know if Ms. Price will prosecute police who kill unarmed Black people like Oscar Grant, that you, Mr. Wiley, specifically did everything to avoid. No, let's not talk about the prosecution of the first cop. We're talking about Mr. Peroni. You did everything, and people need to know that, and I'm here to let them know. So I'm asking Ms. Price, will you prosecute police that kill unarmed citizens of Alameda County?
All right, before we turn over to Mr. Wiley, I want to say, I know we have a lot of impassioned people here on this call tonight, but let's refrain from attacking any of the candidates or singling them out. Mr. Wiley, I will turn
This
it over
was
to
not
you
an
now.
attack, it was a mention of facts, sir.
All right, thank you, Elaine. You've made your point. Mr. Wiley, I'll give you 90 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I would just ask where Ms. Brown was in the year 2000 when 4 officers were charged in probably the biggest corruption case in the history of Alameda County. And the lawyer that stepped up and took on that litigation was Terry Wiley. Where were you when I handled the Ryder's case? It was the longest police corruption case in the history of Alameda County. Where were you?
I'm not running for office, sir.
Yeah, I understand that. It's a rhetorical question, but you just gave the audience the impression that I am someone that will not take police misconduct seriously. I've tried one of the biggest police corruption cases in the history of Alameda County, and it took 8 months to prosecute. And although the case did not result in a conviction and it resulted in a hung jury, it has been the federal oversight that has been over the police department, the Oakland Police Department, that came out of that criminal case, and has resulted in many fewer African Americans being killed by the police because of the police oversight and implementing changes in the Oakland Police Department. And in terms of the litigation with Oscar Grant, the officer who shot Oscar Grant was prosecuted.
Not for the charge, though.
10
Thank you,
seconds,
everyone.
please.
I think
Thank
the next one in order was the phone call, the ending 552.
Well,
Excuse me, Jackie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Pamela. Oh God, don't kill me.
Pamela needs to speak.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Ms. Price, we'll give you 90 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, we know that the Alameda County DA's office has a horrible record on police accountability. I've had multiple cases, including the Oscar Grant case, where Officer Peroni was clearly identified at the outset as the instigator and as the person who should have also been charged with Oscar Grant's murder. The DA's office cut a deal with Peroni. They cut a deal with Johan Meserly, and I'm sure that Mr. Wiley was very familiar with that deal and the decision. As Ms. Brown has pointed out, he has consistently been very compassionate to the family of Oscar Grant, and Oscar's mother, Wanda, has endorsed me, and it's quite clear that Mr. Wiley has not been an advocate for victims and families of police violence in this community. Alameda County has a terrible record of not prosecuting officers, of not holding them accountable. The Ryder's case was a colossal failure for us. It cost us billions of dollars on Mr. Wiley's watch. No one was convicted. And as the pro bono counsel for the Coalition for Police Accountability, I received the monthly reports and the monthly invoices for the monitor, and we pay the monitor $100,000 a month, approximately, as we have for now 18 years, because the DA's office failed to hold anyone accountable in the Ryder's case. There were 119 people.
Please.
there were 119 people who were in the civil case. And it was civil rights lawyers that brought the OPD under consent, not the DA's office. And they consistently continue to be ignored, as we found out in
Thank you,
2016.
Ms. Price.
So the police department blows the
Thank you,
DA's
Ms.
office
Thank you, Ms.
all the
Price.
time.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
Sorry.
Richard,
Sorry.
Richard, should we have one more question? Then we'll
We
need
have-
closing statements.
Sure, we have two more, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements. Thank you, both candidates, for being patient. Our next question is from the phone number 19255, 195522. If you are on, you may unmute.
Hello, good evening, everybody. This is John Bauer from Pleasanton, California. From the beginning, all candidates for DA have agreed on one topic. Change is needed. Each of you have made many campaign promises regarding the change you envision. How do you plan to communicate to the public the changes you plan to implement if elected? And two, how do you plan to communicate the ongoing status of the changes you plan to implement? I look forward to your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ms. Price, you have 90 seconds.
Yes, as a longtime member of this community, as I put it out, I have relationships across the county with organizations that have been on the front lines of criminal justice reform, that understand the problems and the challenges that we have faced with our DA's office in Alameda County. And I will both engage those organizations. I intend to create, as part of our transition, we're going to have interdisciplinary task forces that will include system impacted people, experts, academics, regular everyday people, some of the folks from the nonprofit world who have already committed to support us as we transform this criminal justice system. So it will be a collective process across the county that we're going to engage in, and we will report out. Again, we need transparency in the DA's office. We need engagement with the community. Public safety requires public trust. That is fundamental to our campaign. And so we're not just going to start this. We didn't just start this like yesterday or in 2021. I have been saying for decades, public safety requires public trust. And I will implement that. And I've said to folks over and over again, when I'm elected, do not send me in there by myself. Do not expect that I am going to be able to accomplish this. This is a time for this community to come together and to move forward. I will both directly from the DA's office, we will publish what we're doing. We will continue to be engaged. We will also give the media a new narrative that is not about protecting us, but that is in fact about telling the community what we are doing. Accountability and transparency go together with equity. And those are the things that we are committed to and have been committed to. Thank you,
Ms. Price. Thank you. Mr. Wiley, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, what I've spoken to many voters in this county, and there is no question that what many voters are feeling today is they're not safe. People don't feel safe going to the store. People don't feel safe walking their dogs. They don't feel safe when their kids go out to ride their bikes. They don't feel safe in public. And what I am going to do as the next district attorney of Alameda County is address those individuals that are driving the violence and the serious crime that have everyone feeling unsafe. That every time you open your paper and you hear about a murder in East Oakland, people feel less safe. Those 2,000 individuals are driving one in every two of those murders, either as the victim, the perpetrator of the murder, or a witness of the murder. We are going to deal with individuals on with low-level crime. And we will address crimes that are born from poverty, substance abuse, and mental illness. But you don't get to go punch a 60-year-old woman in the face and think that you're going to get a diversion program. We are not going to tolerate that kind of justice in Alameda County. People are going to be held accountable. We'll give you an opportunity to put your life on a new trajectory. But if you go out and recommit another crime, that's only going to take you so far, because we want a community where people feel safe again. And
10
people can
seconds,
walk their
please.
dogs. People don't have to worry about their cars being broken into and their homes being broken into. We're going to address the problem of crime.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. I did see one other hand that has since put down their hand. Son of Oakland, I don't know if you're still there, but if you wanted to ask the question, I'll allow it.
Yes, I did. This is Ken Houston, son of Oakland. I'm on the ground right now tonight. I thank you guys for putting this forum together. It's really important. I'm out in the streets of East Oakland right now. I just hired 2 individuals that commit the crimes. I hire the shooters. I hire I just hired a guy that just got out of prison, did 40 years. I hire them and we pay them $22.56 an hour, $28. And I heard Mr. Wiley at one of his forums that he said 6 out of 10 is recidivism. That's huge for the people that we touch. How are you guys, or how, this is for both candidates, please tell me, how will you help me that are helping people like, come here, Red. Come here real quick. Helping people like Red. I'm out here in East Oakland. Red did 10 years in the penitentiary, now working for me, making $22.56. How are you planning to help the individuals that I touch on a daily basis, that commit the crimes, the shooters, the people that would be in your house if they weren't getting better than prevailing wage? So that's my question, and thank you for taking my, thank you for that.
Thank you, Ken. That is a very good question. Mr. Wiley, 90 seconds.
Yeah. So look, well, full disclosure, Ken knows that I'm an absolutely huge fan of what he represents. And that on a previous occasion, I went out to even watch and meet one of his crews. Because these were individuals, the kind of individuals that he's talking about, that's standing there with him right now. These are individuals that are coming out of prison, and they need jobs to give them a living wage so that they can take care of themselves and take care of their families. And we are much in favor of programs. And not only what Ken is doing with these individuals, Ken is also getting rid of the blight in the city of Oakland. And it is the blight that is one of the biggest attractors of crime. So as the district attorney, we are going to do whatever we can to encourage programs like Ken Houston. I just have a world of respect for what he's doing, how he's trying to get these individuals living wages, because it is when you have a living wage that you are less likely to reoffend. When you can go do a good day's work and you get paid a living wage and you can take care of yourself and your family, you are much less likely to go out and reoffend. And I am very much in favor of programs like that of Ken Houston. And I will tell you this, I became aware of Ken Houston by just watching him on social media. And I kept saying, who is that guy? Who is that guy that is helping the kinds of people you're talking about? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, 90 seconds.
Sure. As the next district attorney, I will do more than encourage programs like Ken Houston's programs, which I'm familiar with. I will fund them. There is a budget for reentry services that has been squandered and mismanaged by the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. The Prop $47 that came to counties when there was realignment, and I've been part of this for almost a decade now. The governor's office and the legislature made the shift from prisons to bringing people to county, and that money came to the county, and we have not seen it on the ground. In 2018, Governor Newsom vetoed the statewide reentry commission that had been proposed by reentry advocates, many of whom have endorsed me, the leader, the president of All of Us or None, Susan Burton from A New Way of Life. I've been working on reentry issues since I was a legal intern at Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. So I'm very familiar with issues of reentry. I've served as pro bono counsel to men and women of purpose in Contra Costa County, which is the only African-American led program that was in the sheriff's department that brought people home. And so we have a plan to create a reentry commission in Alameda County. We have a plan to fund the programs that are actually helping folks that Ken is working with, that I have worked with, that are supporting my campaign, that are walking with me
10 seconds,
every
please.
day when we go out to canvas to make sure that we are interrupting recidivism in Alameda County, which has been completely ignored by the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, primarily because it's Black and brown people.
Thank you, Ms. Price, and thank you to everybody who asked questions tonight. We will go into closing statements. Because we went Ms. Price and then Mr. Wiley in the opening remarks, we'll go the opposite way out of fairness. So Mr. Wiley, you have up to 2 minutes for your closing remark.
Okay, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you so much for having us this evening. What I represent is balance and justice, and what you were talking about is who is going to be the next person to take over $100 million government agency with 450 employees, while my opponent, the largest organization she's ever run, is a 4-lawyer law firm. And in addition to that, she's never prosecuted one case in 40 years. So I bring experience, but I also bring balance, and that balance is represented in the form of looking at the endorsements that I previously mentioned. John Burris is someone who has been on the forefront of this fight. And if John Burris did not think that I was the most qualified person to bring a criminal justice system that would be one that is fair and just, he would have never endorsed me. Benjamin Crump would have never endorsed me. That's why I've been endorsed by Mia Bonta, Lonnie Hancock, who is on the forefront of leading, demanding change in the way we address our mental health system. She's evaluated me and Ms. Price, and she endorsed me in terms of who's got the best answers and the best handle on how to bring about the kind of change that we want to see in our mental health industry, and how we deal with mental health in Alameda County. When it comes to violent crime, we have a gang problem in Oakland. And until we can get control of these 59 gangs that are driving the majority of serious and violent crime in Oakland, no one is going to feel safe. And unless you're experienced with dealing with district attorneys, with dealing and with police agencies, they're going to win. And I can just tell you that what Ms. Price explained to you, that sounded like a system of chaos.
10
in
seconds,
this county.
please.
That would be a system of chaos. And we are already in a system where no one feels safe. What I represent is safety and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Ms. Price, you have 2 minutes.
Alameda County needs a DA who will embrace police accountability, who will embrace gun violence prevention strategies, proven to reduce gun violence without over-criminalizing Black and brown people, and who will be a member of this community and committed to representing the residents of this community. I've demonstrated that. I have prosecuted many cases. I have held corporations, police agencies, as well as government institutions accountable. And I have done that successfully for 32 years without the overwhelming resources of the state. We have led teams of lawyers against some of the biggest law firms and the biggest, certainly the California Department of Corrections is the biggest state agency that we have. And we have been successful in reforming that agency. And so I reject the fear narrative. I live in East Oakland. I walk the streets of East Oakland. I walk out of my house. I walk to the zoo every day. I walk back. I don't live in fear, and many of my neighbors walk up and down. So we don't, Mr. Wiley has this perception that we're all in fear. That is not, in fact, the reality of Alameda County. It's not the reality in Oakland. It's not the reality in Fremont. It's certainly not the reality in Livermore and Dublin and Pleasanton. And so we got to be realistic and grounded. We need someone that is not going to be hysterical and try to scare people and mislead folks about what is really required in the DA's office. 25% of the cases that the DA's office handles are in fact civil litigation. You need a civil litigator who has done cases across this state. I have been a leader in California. I am endorsed by many people, including Delane Easton, the families of the seriously mentally ill. I have far more endorsements than Mr. Wiley does, and you just need to go to my webpage. But more importantly, what I want is your endorsement. And I've been endorsed by Democratic clubs across the county. And I'm asking you all to join this forward movement and to reject the politics of fear and regression, to reject Sheriff Ahern's choice and Nancy O'Malley's chosen person, and let's step forward. Let's bring the community into this and hold our district attorney's office accountable.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to both of the candidates for their time, for answering the questions. I apologize to everyone for going a little bit over the allotted time, but there were a lot of good questions that deserve good answers. All right, we're going into our, yes, round of applause if you would like for the candidates. And we are going into our voting procedure. Mr. Wiley, Ms. Price, you are welcome to stay if you'd like, but you're not obligated. All right. So Jackie, take it away with our voting procedure.
Okay, tonight you will be voting members in good standing. Again, members in good standing means you have to be current in your dues and be a member of the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. I did look at all the members that are online here and emailed the ballot. It's a Google form. If you're signed into Google, it will show your Google account on the top. You just need to put in a valid email, your full name, and then choose who you would like to endorse, Pam or Terry. And if you want to abstain, you do nothing. Do not vote at all if you're going to abstain. Every member that's on the call tonight should have already received their ballot. Is there anybody that did not receive the ballot? So please check your email. So hearing none, I did send that out. So far we have 5 responses. I think I emailed to about 8 or 9. So give it a couple more minutes.
Jackie, did you say if somebody wanted no endorsement not to fill it out?
Yeah, if you don't want to endorse it all, in other words, if you're abstaining, so you either choose one of them, or if you do not want to vote at all, just do not cast a ballot.
Okay, I wanted to point out the form right now requires that question.
Right, if you don't want to vote, don't vote. Just don't even submit a form.
Okay,
when we had the abstains in there before, it affected the percentages, and you have to back them out anyways to get. So it's just an easier process. If you do not wish to vote and you are a club member, just don't cast a ballot.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Does anybody have any questions, any problems with the form? I'm just gonna call out who I sent it to. If anybody did not receive it, I have Jenny and Sharon, Ellis, Vinny, Alan, Christina, Helen, Valerie, Chris Snell, that's Kelsey, Ronald, Robin, Richard, Christy, and John. Did I miss anybody? So we should have about 14 votes up there. Let me just check the ballots real quick. Cast your ballots, please.
I'm still voting.
Okay.
I didn't get mine.
Okay, Alan, let me go ahead and send it to you in a direct message here. Stand by. Okay, Alan, you should see that in your chat.
Jackie, did you get both of us?
Let me check.
Ellis and Sharon?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sharon wants to remind everybody of the meeting on next Monday night, where we're going to have a lot of down ticket candidates as compared to our top of the ticket candidates who are here tonight.
Okay, I have 15 responses. Alan, did you get your vote in yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to stand by for that. I think you're going to be the last one. And looks like we have a decision tonight. So thank you for standing by. We'll just be another second here. Okay, I have your vote. Okay, we have a decision. You just I will paste up the results here for you. You just see if I can do a snapshot. We have an endorsement, Pamela Price at 64.7%.
Thank you, Jackie. That's wonderful.
And I will get this out in memorandum tomorrow on our website into club membership. Congratulations, Pamela.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tri-Valley Dems. Thank you. Appreciate you all so much. We will work together. Thank you.
Thank
Jackie,
you.
did you say
Yes.
54 or 64?
64.7. 64.7.
Thank you for clarification.
And Mr. Wiley, thank you so much. I know this has been a tough race for both y'all.
Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah.
long race, and
No, I understand. I saw when I was looking at all the photos, I see all of Pamela Price's supporters here.
well, actually, though, our membership, none of those folks that are up there are members. So this was strictly 17 members of Tri-Valley Dems.
No, but thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir.
We certainly appreciate having both of our distinguished guests here. And we wish you best of luck in the general election. Thank you all. Especially thank you to our wonderful moderator, Richard Lee. Good night now.
Tough
you,
job,
everyone.
Richard. Thank you.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
right.
Good night.
Good job, Rick.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
How many did Terry want?